Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message, it comes from one of our dear sister. She sent me this message, then we had to try as much as we could to have her message translated. So this is the translation of the message that she sent to me. The translation reads like this. Hello Brother Nashi, how are you? I have my own story that I want to share with you. This is my journey from my country, which is Zim, going to South Africa, then me ending up here in Ireland, where I am currently working as a caregiver. Each and every time when you upload something, I put on my earphones as I'll be listening to your channel. My story goes on like this. I was married at a young age of 14. I got married simply because there was too much poverty in our family, and my father and my mother, they were both drunkards. We used to follow wherever the African traditional beer had been prepared. So the type of beer that they used to follow around all over the village, it is called 7 days. So my mother and my father would go as far as to steal the maize grain that we would have harvested, that was supposed to be taken to the grinding mill so that we could have something to eat. But my parents, they would choose to steal the food from their children. Then they would go and exchange the food just for alcohol. So by the time that I had turned 14, I had shared my bed with several men until I met this other man whom I thought truly loved me. But I was very wrong. The man was very abusive, and the same poverty that I had faced and the same poverty that I was trying to run away from growing up was the same poverty that I was now facing in my marriage. And now it was worse because at the age of 15, I had my first child, and by the time that I reached 21 years, I had 4 kids. At that time, the man who was my husband had refused me to take any family planning pills. So each and every year I was like pregnant until I had my 4th child. But by the grace of God, I stopped at baby number 4 because that husband of mine, when I was still married to him at that time, he said that he wanted us to have at least 10 children. So if I had stayed with him, I was supposed to have 10 children with him by now. My husband then married 2 more wives. He married these 2 wives of his in 1 year. And I was so hurt because of my living conditions. At that time, we only had 2 houses. These 2 houses that we had, they were made out of mud. So what he will do is that when he wanted to be intimate with one of his wife, the other 2 would share the other mud house for the night. So this was too much for me. By age 23, I was divorced and with 4 kids that I had to take care of. I left my kids with my mother back in our village where I come from, Masvingo, and I only had 5 rand in my pocket. I had 2 rand coins and a 1 rand coin. This I will never forget when I had left my kids with my mom. When I arrived in Masvingo, the town, I just went to a place called Exo where I just stood there. When I stood there were other people that were at that hiking spot. But as for me, unlike those other people, I didn't know what to do anymore. In my heart, I kept on praying and I was saying, if you can take me to South Africa, then God, I will know that you are for real. That was the miracle that I was praying for in that moment. Somewhere late in the night, they came this other truck. It was only me and other few guys that were still waiting at that hiking spot. Then the man got off from his truck. He looked at me and he asked me where I was going. I told him that I was on my way to South Africa, and whilst I was on his truck, after he had promised me that he would take me to South Africa, along the way, he kept on telling me that if I could manage to South Africa because of my appearance, because I am very light-skinned, he said that you can go as Cape Town and no one will ever ask you because everyone will just think that you are a South African. He said that he had the means to get me to South Africa. So he said that he wanted some money from me so that he can pay along the way. But my brother, I didn't have any money. So he said that if you do not have any money with you, the only plan that you can try to make from me is if you can sleep with me, then I'll make a plan to get you across the border into South Africa. I was really heartbroken, but there was nothing for me to do. So I ended up sleeping with that man, even though I saw that this man, it seemed as if he was very sick. From the way that he looked, his skin, my brother, I saw that this man was already sick, and I didn't have any money to buy any protection. And since I didn't have any money, when I asked him to take out some protection, he said that he didn't have any protections in his truck. So he said that if you do not want us to do it, then you will leave me with no choice. I will drop you off here. And at the spot where he had parked his truck, it was in an area which I saw that if he was going to drop me there, maybe other men were going to take advantage of me. So I ended up agreeing to sleep with him. After I had slept with him, he had told me that he was going to personally take me across into South Africa. But once we had arrived in Beitbridge, everything changed. He said that he was going to wait for me. He said that he was going to wait for me in Musina, and he said that he can no longer personally take me across the border. He then left me in Beitbridge with this other man, and he told me that he had already paid that man, so all that I had to do was to follow the orders that was going to be given to me by that man. So I followed that man, and we went to that man's house that was in Beitbridge. When we arrived at his house, there were other 4 people that were going to cross the border. So the man took another guy whom he worked with. Then we headed for the Limpopo River. But soon after we had been in South Africa, there were 2 men who came rushing out of the bushes. Then more men followed them. They said that they wanted money from us so that they could let us pass, but we had nothing. And unfortunately, as for me, as a woman who is very light-skinned, so much that you can mistake me for a colored woman, then they took me and they slept with me. It was 4 of those men, one after the other. After they were done, amongst the 5 of us, there were 4 women, including me and another man who was with his wife. So they forced that man, and after they had forced him to abuse his wife, they then forced him to abuse me as well. They said that they had to do it so that the man and the wife won't break up their marriage because of this. After this traumatic experience, they pretended to be the good guys, and they showed us the way that would lead us into Messina and how to get to this other church, which I think it was called a Dutch church or something, that was there in South Africa, that was there in Messina, where we slept, and I was taken to a hospital. So amongst those women, there was this other woman who said that she had a relative who was working for ShopRite. This was in Johannesburg. So she said that this other relative of hers, she was a manager there at ShopRite in Johannesburg. So that woman said that if we could get to Joburg, then her relative was going to assist us so that we can get a job. And then we started working for the transport money, and we traveled to Johannesburg. When we arrived at that woman's house, even with all of my suffering and everything that had happened to me,